the power of the law and the reach of it is something that I've always been aware of throughout my life. I think I might have said this to you before growing up, but the law is like physics. It's really involved in every aspect of what we do. And so it has always been throughout the entirety of my career, it's been very humbling to work in an area that I believe is of great importance to our society.
All right, welcome back to our Speak Life podcast. This is officially the 10th episode. Thank you for supporting us through episodes 1 through 9. We appreciate all the support you guys give us in any way, shape, form, or fashion. We are trying to bring on amazing guests and reach you however we can and reach you right where you're at. We're speaking life, sowing seeds today for tomorrow's harvest. We got a very, very distinguished special guest today. One of my best friends in the whole world, Jamel Semper, who newly appointed United States District Judge. Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Jamel, you got a BA from Hampton University, a JD from Rutgers Law School. You have a very decorated career as a criminal prosecutor, 10 years on the New Jersey state level as a criminal prosecutor, 5 years on the federal side, also in the criminal sector. And in September, you got a call, we'll say a nomination, from President Joe Biden to become a United States District Judge.
Yes.
And on December 1st, you received your judicial commission.
Yes.
Congratulations, my man. I know this. We walked through this together. I can't tell you how happy I am for you. And knowing your journey, knowing the path you take, knowing how focused you are, knowing how committed you are, and really how committed you are to the law. You know, it's not a game for you, obviously. You're a judge, but Your Honor, I appreciate you, man. I love you, and thank you for coming on the podcast, man.
I appreciate you, and it's funny that you're asking me questions because, like, I feel like I need to ask you the questions. You saw it all. You've been here from the very start, so
yeah, man.
Thank you for having me.
We go back, geez, all our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, we our brothers are friends. I mean, we've grown up all our lives, and so honestly, the front row seat. I mean, as I turn back the pages, and I look at it now where it is. There was always a laser beam like focus on this position. Like you always had your mindset on becoming a judge.
Yeah.
From day one.
Yeah. It's I think as a kid I was always simple. I always asked for like one Christmas gift a year. I never wanted more than I needed. And so yeah, this was always a dream of mine. And to realize it is the humility I feel is intense. And it also, I think, drives me every day to do the very best I can do because, I've wanted something and now I've been fortunate enough to attain it. And so now I have to do my very best to make sure that I can continue to maintain all that comes with the position.
No doubt. And we'll get into that. Take us down this path. I'm standing before, you're married, you got the Semper clan. Like, I got all that. And then I got this, I'm sitting before a United States judge who's my friend. And so, but there was a boy.
Mm-hmm.
There was a dream.
Sure.
There was a journey. Sure. There was a process.
Yeah.
Dude, you had to go to law school. You had to take the bar. Take us down this path of like where you found the love for this,
Sure.
where you found the joy for this, where you found like, hey, it's almost like law for you was like your high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
Sometimes you meet these couples, they've been together since high school, and you're like, how did y'all do that?
Yeah.
Well, for some of us, we want to go to school for one thing. Mm-hmm. We overgeneralize our major, or we go and focus on one major, and we realize, Like me, I went to culinary school. I might cook twice a month, and it's still my favorite hobby.
Yeah.
But I didn't marry my high school sweetheart. So take us down this journey, man, of like where this love came from, the laser beam like focus, and we'll get into your career.
Sure. I think the interest in law was something I found on my own. To put it in context, my parents were involved in math and science. You know, my father was a computer consultant. My mother was a computer programmer. So they didn't really have a great professional background in the pursuits that I eventually took up. I think for me, the interest in law and specifically in the courtroom and litigation, I would probably say around 15, you know, around junior year. You and I had we were in a history class, and we had some mock trials there, and just being on my feet, taking a position, making an argument, being bound by the facts, and not allowing my creativity to get in the way of the facts.
Oh yeah, your creativity to get
No, I didn't allow for that back then. But yeah, I think at that age, I knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life in law, in a courtroom setting. It's something that spoke to me. You know, when you find that thing, I found that thing very early.
So we're going to go into this high school class.
Sure.
Because this was great. I mean, so it was a history class. Well, we had two courses. It was American law, and then it was American history.
Yes.
Both of those were our junior year. Was American law our senior year?
I was gonna say sophomore, junior year. You might.
I think
recall
it's junior,
better.
senior, but it could be junior.
Yeah.
Either way, American history came first.
Yes.
Mr. Knox.
Yes.
And so I don't remember the case. All I know is that we are opposing lawyers.
We were.
We were doing closing arguments against each other.
We were.
And we were both animated and
We were.
going for the jugular.
Yes.
And I lost. And I was like, I mean, I'll never forget when the jury, you know, everyone went crazy. Like it was such a heated debate.
Yeah.
And it was like when they finally came with the ruling and you won. And so that we carried that to American law.
We did. And that competition that we had back then, it made me feel so alive. You know, and to be in front of my classmates who served as the jury back then, not knowing which way they would come out, but knowing I had to do what I could to try to persuade them. That was there was something that was very infectious about that moment, and I wanted to keep experiencing something like that. So
yeah, and then American law was like a what do you call those classes?
it was like
elective. It was an elective.
It was an elective, yeah.
So it wasn't like a required course. You took it because you wanted to. So we took it.
Yeah.
And we had another case. I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I think it was law teams, though. I think it was teams. I think you were probably the leading lawyer on your team.
think
I
so.
remember you won, I guess, again. And we used to watch. It was a movie.
Devil's Advocate.
Devil's Advocate. It was Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And he had this line in the movie says,
Oh, you say it.
I never lost a case. So you start going off on this. I never lost a case. I'm thinking, this guy, this freak. First off, I don't know. I wanted to win one, but you had this undisputed deal. But at that, there was a point in time where I knew. That's when I knew. American law. Wasn't American history. I remember it made you feel alive, the first one.
Sure.
But with the second one, I could tell, like, this is where this guy's going.
Sure.
And so, you know, you went to Hampton. What were you majoring down there? What was your goal in those 4 years?
I was a history major.
Okay.
Probably because we had such a good time in history class in high school. Going into Hampton, the goal was always law school.
Got it.
You know, I didn't have a plan B. I think had it not worked out, perhaps I would have tried to pursue being a history teacher just because I had those times with you. But I always knew that, my end game would be in law, in litigation, and in a courtroom. That was always the plan. So when I set foot on Hampton's campus, I knew where I wanted to go.
Nice. As you progress through, your professional life out of school, and you started going to law school, there was a point in time in your career where obviously you fell into the profession of being a prosecutor. We talked a little bit earlier. You said that you became a public defender because you wanted to learn your ultimate goal was to be a prosecutor.
Sure.
Can you talk about that story a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I was in law school, and I was interning. Every year for law school, the big thing in the summer is to decide what you're going to do. Some people go to law firms. Some people go to different law offices, smaller law offices to serve. I knew I wanted to do something regarding the courts. So my first year, I interned for a judge who sat in the Superior Court in the criminal division and in Essex County. And I got to see a number of trials and court proceedings, and I was studying both the prosecutors and the public defenders. I knew going into college that I wanted to serve as a prosecutor. There was just something about that work that I wanted that was fascinating, and it just drew me in. But I wanted to test that view because I didn't have any lawyers in my family. I didn't have a great deal of a network that I could leverage and say, okay, can you expose me to this? I had to make those opportunities. And so I decided to serve as a public defender while interning in law school in my second year because I wanted to try doing the exact opposite of what I thought my end game was. And so
why? That's such an interesting.
I
love it. Why?
I think the why is because how better to know if you want something than by doing something totally contrary. And so what it allowed me to do, it really illuminated my perspective because I had a great summer. I worked with some great lawyers who were so talented, and I took on some very challenging legal matters, which I think any young lawyer or aspiring lawyer wants. I think, you should always seek matters that are going to push you intellectually and really test the boundaries of your limitations. And then maybe you find that your limitations are bigger than you thought they were, and you have a greater capacity. And so that was a very informative year. And when I left that summer internship program at the Public Defender's Office, I was beginning my third year of law school with the full intention of wanting to serve as a law clerk for a judge.
Got it. And you identified that judge?
I did. And in fact, I met him while I was serving as an intern for the Public Defender's Office. I had a very challenging case that I was arguing before him. I did not win, and it wasn't close. But I was so impressed with his knowledge of the law, his grace, and his temperament. And I knew at that point, after having been in front of him, that if I had an opportunity to work for him and learn under him, I was going to take that opportunity. Law is it's at times it can be a very apprentice-based business. Many of the young people that are in law school, the students, they go and serve at law offices or judges, but we're trying to learn the profession. And these mentors that we gain along the way expose us to these different avenues, these different areas of thinking, these different legal concepts. And so I knew based on how that judge comported himself, I wanted to go and learn under him because I thought it could be a very rewarding experience.
Wow. And so how did you go about making sure that happened?
as I mentioned earlier, I didn't have people who were in the law who could sort of guide me. So I probably went about it the wrong way.
Okay.
But I put on a suit one day. I printed out over a dozen resumes, and I went to every criminal judge who was serving on the state level in Essex County. And I knocked on their doors, and I dropped off my resume and asked for an interview. And so some people called, some people didn't. But I was able to get an offer to serve as a law clerk. And I wanted to serve as a law clerk because I wanted to gain the experience of working for a judge that in a very active court. I intentionally chose Essex because it was the biggest vicinage for the sort of work that I was drawn to, which was criminal. And after I got an offer from one judge, I reached out to the other judge that I mentioned earlier that I appeared in front of, and I told them I would love to take the offer that was offered to me, but I would also love an opportunity to serve under that judge. And he paused for a minute. I wasn't sure where he was going to go, and he said, "Call that other judge and tell that other judge that you have a job." So
wow.
yeah, and it was a transformative experience for me. I was
Wow.
very, very, very grateful for that.
That's amazing. When you think about, I mean, you're saying so much. And I do want to touch on this apprenticeship thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, is that still a thing? Is that still the way?
Very much so.
Okay. I feel like in some industries, I feel like not industries. I feel like in today's day and age, with social media on tilt. Now the law's got to be a lot different, but in the business community, in some of these sectors where you get to take destiny a lot of times into your own hands by becoming, a creator or becoming, an influencer or what have you, that you say the word apprenticeship, and I'm like, is that still a thing?
Sure. It is a thing. The extent to which it is as prominent now as it was, 17 years ago when I was getting my start, I couldn't speak to.
Got it.
But I do know that younger lawyers tend to derive a great amount of benefit from serving with more experienced lawyers. It's not to say that that is the only way to succeed or to further your career, but it is a tried and true way that I think has assisted a lot of lawyers and, particularly me.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. And, so this law clerk role, at this point in time, you're still in law school.
No, so I had just graduated from law school. I had taken the bar exam, and so a month after that, I served as a law clerk, and so that position lasts for a year.
Okay.
And
Period.
so-
That's what it's designed to do.
Yeah, that's what it's designed to do.
Okay.
On the state level. And to me, that was the fourth year of law school, because it's one thing to see, to read about the law in the abstract. It's another thing completely to actually watch it be applied in a courtroom.
Wow.
And have it be tested by the adversarial process. And I remember serving as a law clerk, reading these briefs that the parties would submit. And you're wondering, like, wow, I wonder how this is going to come out factually. I wonder how the testimony is going to play. And I remember just reading briefs and then having hearings and watching it all come alive. And I just thought it was the most fascinating part of it. And then watching the court have to, consider both sides, consider the law, and render a judgment, make a ruling. And I think, in fact, I know that that year that I served as a law clerk, I wrote many memos for my judge. I think they were more for my edification than they were for his. He would finish my sentences when I would mention cases and tell him where I thought the law was. And so that apprenticeship, that exposure to this great experienced legal mind, I thought it was one of the most important years learning that I had entering the profession.
That's incredible, man. I think if I'm being honest, and now maybe I want to take back what I said about apprenticeship, but I still think that's whether people are doing it or not. Obviously, they're doing it in the legal industry. I think it's one of the best ways to make it in any industry.
Sure.
Is to find someone that's doing what you want to do, and see if you can get under them for a year or two.
Sure.
And learn.
Sure.
And just learn and soak it up.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a message for people out there. Like, you're trying to get where you want to go. Don't be too proud. Like, there's people out there with great experience that can help you get further along faster because they know the tricks of the trade. And I think, Jamel, like, being able to get into that room is probably the most important thing. Because it's one thing to just grab the coffee or to just carry the bag.
Sure.
It's another thing to get in that room where real things are happening.
Totally.
That's when you get to process. That's when you get to see. So don't be too much of a boss early on. Like, it's good to have the skills to roll up under somebody who's doing it and doing it well and learning. You're gonna get there a lot faster. So,
and I think to that point, I think young people need to make shrewd decisions about who they go to for this mentorship, because not everyone is in a position to give the tutelage that is necessary for someone to get what they need and advance.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm watching, and I'm creating a visual of the story you're telling, and the resumes and going down to and picking the right person, and then I'm rewinding, then I'm fast forwarding to where you are now, and I'm like, you have been a very good judge of character, right? You've kind of picked exactly the moves you wanted to make. And so it brings you here. Now, you have a 15-year run after this apprenticeship as a state criminal prosecutor and as a federal criminal prosecutor.
Yes.
So when we speak about criminal law and we speak about the criminal justice system and your ability to have an impact at the level you had it at, you were in the state for 10 years, you transitioned to the Fed. Again, at all these levels, you're being elevated because of the work you're doing. What was behind the passion in the criminal justice system for you?
I was drawn to the criminal justice system because I thought that the issues involved, liberty, constitutional principles, were of such importance that I wanted to be involved in that. It made me feel like I was adding value because I was involved in something of such import. And so I also knew that I wanted to litigate cases and get on my feet, as we would call it, meaning you're in court, you're in front of a jury, you're in front of a judges, you're making an argument. And I knew the fastest, most voluminous way to do that was in the criminal justice system. So that was one of the things that drew me into the work, was the opportunity to work in consequential matters and the opportunity to do a lot of it. And so those were really the driving factors.
So, having been in, the different court rooms in the city of Newark or in Union County, you're on your feet, as you said.
Sure.
You're in the middle of the action. You're trying to gather facts. You're trying to figure out what's what. What was the feeling of like being in the mix and actually, gathering the data, gathering the facts to bring forth the right kind of case for justice?
Sure. I think any advocate, any litigator that is on their feet a lot, they spend a lot of time reading and trying to construct arguments that are both clear, concise, and compelling.
Yeah.
Right? And so you never, as an advocate, know how it's going to land before that judge or before that jury. But you do the best you can to construct it. And I think being able to have an idea, put it together, obviously in the context of the law and the rules, but being able to persuade and achieving your objective. I think for people that are drawn to advocacy and litigation, regardless of what side you're on, I think that is very rewarding. And I think if you like it, because it's not for everybody, but if you enjoy it, there really is nothing quite like it.
Love it. I mean, it's got to be, amazing to do the work for the judicial system and do it in a way that you know your responsibility and you know what extent of the law you need to go to handle certain matters. And to the point where, again, you keep elevating throughout your career. Now, we talk about the criminal side of your career as far as you getting into being a criminal prosecutor. Did you call that shot, or did someone grab you?
No, I intentionally applied.
Okay.
And I remember getting back to what we talked about earlier, like with the apprenticeship, I leaned a lot on the judge I served for to help me decide which office to go to, why I was going to do it. And at the time, he had recommended that I go serve in a different county, in Union County, than I was serving while I was with him. And it seemed like a curious suggestion because I had no connection to Union County or didn't even know half the towns in it or anything like that. But I put a lot of stock into the advice he gave because he hadn't led me wrong up to that point.
Right.
And so I went there not knowing what to expect, and it was probably the first time that I learned to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Taking a chance and seeing where it would take me. And it was probably some of the best career advice I ever got.
Why?
Because one, I met lifelong friends in that office. And two, I got an opportunity to do exactly what he thought would happen. I got an opportunity to litigate a lot of cases in a very short period of time. And that's what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And so to watch that come to fruition was it was really important for me, and I thought helped open up opportunities for me in my career because I was able to litigate so many matters there.
Got it. And so how long were you in Union County?
I was there for 4.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you made your way back to Essex County.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I enjoyed my life in Union County. I knew I had a network of people that I was dealing with, and but I also felt like I wanted another challenge. I felt like I'd done everything there that I wanted to do, and I wanted to go to a place that I could have that sort of new beginning of sort of figuring out, can I have success in another place, and seeing whether or not I was capable of that. And I went to Essex.
Yeah. You were definitely capable. FYI. Again, your career continued to go on a north trajectory. And so Essex has, one of the biggest cities in the state, in Newark. Newark is an ever improving city, but high in crime. And so there had to be a drawback to Essex, yes?
Not for me, but I know that some of the people that, whose advice I gave value to, did not think it was the best idea.
Really?
To go. Yeah. And I saw an opportunity to have an impact, and I think the challenge was really, what drew me in. And so, notwithstanding that, I trusted the opinions of those I consulted, I liked that challenge, and that's why I went there.
Got it. And now, were you under a judge there, or you were just in the judicial system?
No, I was in the executive branch. So as a prosecutor, I was serving in the executive branch. So my term as a prosecutor was on a different branch of government.
Okay, got it. And in Newark, I mean, just like probably Union County, you're gonna have some very high profile cases, and some stuff that, as you go from state to federal, they even get more high profile. And so, what was it like to be dealing with matters at that level?
We were talking earlier about the interest in that area of law because of the stakes involved. And I think some of the matters that I handled in Essex really met a lot of those things that I sought after. They were of cases of consequence. And it was a very humbling opportunity to serve in them. But I enjoyed those pressurized moments. It's one of the things I signed up for willingly. And so it was a challenging time, but also a time that I enjoyed a great deal.
In those environments, as you said, pressure packed, was that making you, or do you feel like you were made for it?
I think that they definitely had a role in shaping my perspective. I think that I was able to deal with the challenge. Whether I was made for it, I would leave to others, but I know that I enjoyed the challenging nature of the work. And I don't think it's for everyone. There's some people who have an issue with public speaking. There's some people, everyone has things that they're comfortable with and things that bring them discomfort. I was not uncomfortable in those situations.
Got it. All right, Jamel, so can you share a memorable moment from your legal career that has influenced your perspective on the law?
Yeah. It would probably be the very first thing that happened like in my official legal career. The judge I served for, he swore me in. And I remember that day in the courtroom, he swore me in as a lawyer.
Okay.
I had just passed the bar. Nice. And my mother was holding the Bible. My father was taking the pictures. My father was a sort of classic Caribbean man. He didn't offer a lot of compliments, and he was very stern. But I could see in that moment how much it meant to him that his child was serving the law and realizing his dream. And I know from my parents and watching both of them, they were immigrants, and coming to this country was everything for them because they came here for both the protections of America's laws, but the opportunity to advance their family.
Wow.
And so watching that had a great impact on me. One, because it felt like I was taking an act with their help to further advance our family into this country. So the power of the law and the reach of it is something that I've always been aware of throughout my life. I think I might have said this to you before growing up, but the law is like physics. It's really involved in every aspect of what we do.
Wow.
And so it has always been throughout the entirety of my career, it's been very humbling to work in an area that I believe is of great importance to our society.
That's crazy, man. That's amazing. Not everyone gets to fulfill their childhood dream. not everyone gets to make an impact at this level. Not everyone gets to, your life is a life that you've sown a lot of seeds. A lot of seeds. A lot of early mornings, a lot of late nights, trying to crack the code or find the case cracker to a situation.
Yeah.
And, getting good at that or getting great at that or, adjusting to different, things that were going on at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
And ending up here, and then for you to, talk about your parents in that light of like, you not only lived your childhood dream, you created legacy for your family name.
Sure.
It's stuff of legends. You know what I'm saying? And so I continue to say that I commend you and I'm proud of you. Unbelievable. So, and the last question I'll ask you, my brother, is for aspiring lawyers, people that are out there, your career is now well documented. There's people like you walked up in that law room that day and said, this is the judge I want to serve under. This is the judge I want to get to know. I'd love to spend some time here. There's people now watching your career. They've watched what you've done. Sure. It's well documented what you've done and where you are today and what you're doing and the impact that you're going to have for a long time. And so there's people getting into law, coming out of law school, that are going to be very interested in an answer to this question. What advice do you have for aspiring lawyers or individuals, anybody that are interested in pursuing a career in the law?
I would say or suggest that they find that thing that unlocks their passion. For me, hearing, being a part of this discussion, like you've always known this about me, it was the courtroom. It was being on my feet, hearing cases, applying the law. And so I knew early on, I was fortunate enough to find out at age 16, that's what made me tick. I think for young lawyers, young people, you have to find that thing. Because once you do, it's not work anymore.
Wow.
It's your passion. It is your purpose. It is what you are about, all right? And so I think the hard part is finding what it is that draws you in, that, staying up till 2:00 in the morning and waking up at 6 is not a big deal.
Right.
Because you really enjoyed it.
That's amazing.
But that is the discovery process is where I think the questions and the uncertainty comes from. But because I think once you find it, the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah, that's epic. I love that. 2 a.m., 6 a.m. That's passion, baby. That's passion. And so I know a lot of you out there can register with that. And if you can't, that's what you want in life. You want that passion. And so, Jamel, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come and join us on the Speak Life podcast. It's more than an honor to have you here. More than an honor to have you here. And thank you so much for sharing so generously to our audience out there.
Well, thank you for having me. And I've known you a very long time. You are one of my dearest friends. I could not be more proud of you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you. Like, comment, share. Please make some comments. We can open this up for dialogue. Thank you for all you do out there. Love you. Keep listening. God bless. Thank you, Mel.
Of course.